Hey, welcome back to the show, everybody. We've got a fun one. We got a couple of return guests. This is going to be, we've had Barbara M. DeLong on before. We've had King Goudsward on before, talking about books. And this one, we've got them both on here to talk about a collaboration that they did based off of some amazing compilation of information that Barbara's late husband put together, and they were able to create a book based off of this stuff on UFOs. And it was a really cool read. I mean, this was just, it was like case file. You're just like reading all these descriptions and plus their take on them. So I highly recommend it. And that's Before Roswell, The Secret History of UFOs. In this 1947 Roswell, New Mexico, this is when the world basically started thinking about alien visitations. You know, whether or not this, even though throughout history there's been many things, even just smack in our face. You know, in the Bible, Ken has a book, UFOs in the Bible. He also had, you know, one of his other books, Magic in the Bible. Barbara's had, she's got this information on her site, barbaradelong.com, that you could find this information as well. And there's all this stuff that, you know, when you look back, this isn't the first time that we've been visited. And there's many lists of this stuff through history, just staring us right in the face. I mean, through art, through it's right there. It shows us. And they came together, they made this book, and we are fortunate enough to have them on here to talk about Before Roswell, The Secret History of the UFOs, and that is going to be right now. Welcome to the Three Beards Podcast. My name's Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is right.
Then live to send the innocent to their death? Is this justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
All right, and Brian is with us. Chris, he is feeling a little under the weather, so he may or may not make it here. I told him he was going to try, and I told him, I'm like, what is the point of you being on camera if you're muted the entire time because you're hacking yourself to death trying to keep from coughing? So I'm like, I go, if you can make it, awesome. If you can't, everybody's going to understand. Austin, Ginger Squatch, he's been under the weather too. So one beard is standing still. And then luckily I've got my support beard over here, Brian. You know, you can find him on Into the Goblin Universe. Pretty much everything. He's sporting one of our shirts right there.
Beard swag. It's nice and soft. It doesn't bother your nipples. It's nice. It's lovely.
You can find fantastic. If it does, wear a pasty, huh?
Yeah,
yeah,
it's great. It's a good product.
Yeah, no, they're amazing things. You can get those on our website, threebeardspodcast.com. Before we get the show going, this show is brought to you every week courtesy of Ron at ERRT Radio. Go to Mixler.com, set up your account there so that way these three beards can smack you in the ear hole as often as you want, including all these other great shows that he has, including music lineup, courtesy of Ron over at ERT Radio, ERRT Radio. And at this time, let's bring on the guests of honor in our virtual green room. We have Barbara M. DeLong and Ken Goudsward. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Very good, thanks.
I'm going to I'm going to move us around so that way people can see you guys. I want to make sure the guests are up on the top here for people that are watching. People that are listening,
I'm on top.
you just have to take our word for it because hey,
When the guests
we're
stop,
playing Hollywood Squares right now. I'll take Brian for the block.
Circle gets
you
the
need
square.
a couple more.
Yes.
It would be
Oof.
great. We should do that one day.
Yeah, for everybody that can't tell by now, my beard is graying because I just brought up Hollywood Squares,
Yeah.
a show that there's not too many people under the age of 35 that may even have a clue what that show was.
Well, if you mention Hollywood Squares, but if you mention specifically Paul Lynn, then you're old.
Yes. Oh, the name just swept. What was the lady? She was always in the middle square.
I thought that was Paul. Paul.
Maybe
Lynn.
it was Paul. Who was?
Paul
There was
Lynn.
always one that they always called on her, and she always just had those really just, those just off the wall comments. I don't know if you.
Squares.
I don't remember. I know I saw it, but it was a long
Yeah.
time ago.
They're not here to talk
Phyllis
Hollywood
Diller.
Squares.
Phyllis Diller,
Was
yes,
that
Phyllis
Betty
Diller was
White?
in there.
It might have been Betty White.
Well,
Oh.
actually, I think it was Phyllis Diller. Actually, Betty White was
Yeah,
on
Phyllis.
that.
Billy White. Yeah, I think it might have been Phyllis because
Yeah.
she almost had kind of like that smokers,
Yep.
kind of cackle. Yeah,
Right.
that
right.
would.
That
Yep,
was like
Ruth
Brett
Buzzy.
Summers.
Yeah, Phyllis Diller. People are saying, yeah, Phyllis Diller.
Yeah,
Yep,
we got
there
an
we
old
go.
crowd here, folks.
Yeah, so hey, we'll just welcome everybody in. Ouroboros Queen, Harlan, Joanne, Mark is here. Nikola Tesla is with us from the Beyond the Grave,
Ooh.
the YouTube. King, welcome to the show, everybody. Let's see if make sure I'm not missing. And Laura's here. Okay, Nana, Jaron, you're here. Julianne. All right, so now we got that cut up. So Barbara M. DeLong from Nightlight, courtesy. She is the one and only that can keep the Mark Eddy crowd and keep him in line. Otherwise, Lord only knows what could happen in those 2 hours.
You
Yeah.
would be surprised some of the things that have happened. He tends to attract the strange and unusual.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, I told him it's like, in a way I kind of feel set up by you two because I had Jack Churchward on to talk about the land, the moo, and I was like, that was one of the toughest interviews I've ever done. He's an amazing guy, but I was just like, for anybody that's never done interviews, when you have somebody on and they give you a one-word answer, you have nothing. So I mean, if I just went, "Hey Ken, how are you doing today?" Fine.
Mhm.
That's it. There's no branch over there. I mean, it's just. So, did you like writing your book? No. You're just like you might as well just wad up every piece of paper you have in front of you, just throw it and just call it a day. And I was just like, that was the one where I literally had to dig deep to find something to even make a show.
Yeah,
So luckily,
I did one of those, and I sweated puddles. It was just, you have to ask, you have to give the answer as a question so they can say yes.
Right.
yeah, don't laugh, Craig. You co-hosted. Yep.
Oh yeah, here comes Mark. Okay.
Yeah, he was there. Yep. Mark Eddy's in the house. I said I almost brought him on. I almost thought about bringing him on too. But I was like, I wasn't. Give Barbara a break, right? Yeah. So Ken, author. UFOs in the Bible. Magic in the Bible. We just lost Barbara.
Barbara's gone. Yeah.
She just got
I didn't do that on
What have you
purpose.
done with her?
Let's just talk about me. Hey,
Yes.
my stuff's great.
Let's see if we get her back.
Yeah, Ouroboros, we were trying to figure. Oh, there she is. We're trying to figure that out. Because I think once we get to 1,000 subscribers, I can start doing super chat and other stuff through YouTube. Through Facebook, we have subscriptions. I mean, if you want, you can go to our website, threebeardspodcast.com. Go through there, and with merchandise, you can support us that way too as well.
Right.
Or I mean, if you want, you could. I mean, we're if you want to just throw the couch cushion change in an envelope and mail it to us. I mean, we wouldn't turn it down.
Another good way to do that is with Substack, and you can just make a newsletter. You don't have to really say too much, but people can subscribe on a monthly basis for that.
Oh, okay, that's
cool.
I'm going to write that down.
Some people also use PayPal, buy me a cup of coffee, whatever.
Yeah, I think we have buy me a cup of coffee too. So we've got I'll try to share the link tree for that. So Yeah. And Joey Magia's chiming in. It's like the Before Roswell book is excellent. He's reading it currently. Is there a mailing address? Yes, I can send that to you. Yeah, stuff. I mean, it's one of those. I'll message that to you there. So yes, UFOs. So
Yes.
I listened to the whole Nightlight interview that you guys did together, because I mean it was I had to listen in for Barbara's debut as a guest on her own show. That was
Right.
fantastic.
Yeah.
It's like you were being interviewed on your own show. That is, it's pretty impressive.
Actually, I think we're going to do that a couple more times with some of the other projects that we have.
Yeah, you guys did really well. It's for those I'm clicking on those. So I got to keep talking, or else it's horrible audio for people that are listening if they just sit there and they can't hear anything. But yeah, just on Amazon, you can go to Amazon.com and get this. And this, it really, when you get it, you start off. For me, when I saw the thing Before Roswell, I'm like, okay, this. If you just look back to the title, it looks like it's somebody that's kind of like where somebody's thinking, okay, this is what I think, leads up to the Roswell incident, and these, yep. And that's, yep. He's got it right there.
Oh yeah.
And just, I was pleasantly surprised, especially with listening to the interviews from you guys. And also looking at the book is that you guys cite, I want to say it's 364 cases.
Yep. That's right. It's one for every day of the year, except you got to take one day off, probably Christmas. But it's your choice.
Well, hey, if you believe the Christmas story would be, one of the pinnacle UFOs,
it's actually
the star that the wise men follow. So I mean, that could be just the UFO in itself, and
that's true.
That would be a little kickback to a certain show we did with Ken.
Yeah.
Wow.
When you guys put together the book, did you purposely put it together where the timeline is like kind of doesn't
backwards.
go from old to new? It's backwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually had to do a lot of work to make it fit that format,
right?
Because originally the data that I stole from Barbara's website was in normal chronological order,
right.
But I wanted the book to flow in reverse chronology, because we're kind of going, okay, well, we know that there's UFOs now, but did you know there was UFOs before Roswell? Did you know there was UFOs before that? How about before this? How about before this? So we just keep going backwards, farther and farther.
I liked it a lot as a researcher. It's better always to keep people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
Initially grab them with something that's the topic, which is Roswell, where everybody kind of knows Roswell. Mm-hmm. But what I like is going back. Let's go back further. Take another step back, and then you'll follow the journey. If people start reading, from chronological order, they feel like they're in history class, and then you just start drifting off. And
that's true. Down. Well, and another thing that I kind of just thought of, because it ties back to a conversation I was having yesterday was that. I think to get to the bottom of any question, there's this thing called the 5 whys. Yeah. So basically, you just ask why 5 times, and whatever the next answer is, just say why, and you do that 5 times, and you've got yourself into a really interesting rabbit hole a lot of times, but at least you can really delve into the information, and so that's sort of the similar approach in terms of well, this was already happening, and here are the patterns that we see, but why? Because they are a continuation of the earlier patterns, and so it's sort of almost doing that in a way.
Yeah, no, it's a great concept. I know a lot of researchers and investigators that also become authors, and after a while, it's like, okay, I know about this. Let's move on. It's a great trip. You guys put it together perfectly, the reverse, which is really wonderful, because then you're taking in the big picture, and now you're letting him say, okay, you think that's big? Let's go back a little bit.
Right.
What happened then? Go back. So I love that.
Oh, thank you.
I kind of talked about it just a little bit ago, but I wanted to let you guys explain exactly how it came from your perspective, because this was Barbara. One of the things, like from our interview too, she has her website where she posts a lot of this information on there. It's BarbaraDeLong.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can go there and you can find this information on her site. And that was one, where I'll let you guys take this from here. How did from just your meeting and stuff, what led you guys to, the kind of that eureka moment? This is the one, like, you know what, hey, we have something here. Let's make a book. Let's do this.
Oh, well, that was Ken. I didn't know I had a book floating there for the last 10 years. Actually, there's more than one that I had not known was there, but it only is on my website because it was on Patrick's website, and when he passed away, I had to let the website go. So everything that was not on in any of the books that he wrote, I put onto my website, and that turned out to be the information on giants and the information on UFOs. And because I'd seen a UFO, I'm fairly familiar with a lot of the stuff, so I'm comfortable with UFO stuff. And it has floated there for well over 10 years, and then Ken discovered it, and I'll let Ken take it from there.
Yeah, so when I discovered it because I was a guest on Nightlight, and so I was poking around the site there and just looking around at what other stuff Barbara had going on, and I noticed all this UFO, just a lot of kind of raw data in a way, and basically I was like, man, there's so much material here. I wonder if Barbara would want to turn it into a book, because I'm a publisher, and I'm always looking for people to work with in terms of getting more books done. I like to encourage people who have never really thought that they could write a book. I'll help them along, and I'll be like, well, I know you have some good ideas.
Maybe through here.
Yeah, there's my website there. So yeah, basically, I do books for a lot of people who are now my friends because they were strangers or a friend of a friend, and we did a book together, or I published their book, and so that's kind of my thing, aside from writing my own books. So when I saw that Barbara had all this information there, I said, well, I don't know if she's ever written a book. Well, I actually did go and check, and she does have a poetry book on Amazon. So we, but then I brought it up. I'm like, well, hey, might as well ask, like, have you thought about doing a book on this stuff? Or would you mind if I used some of this material? And she was like, oh yeah, you can use it. And I thought about it a little bit more, and I was like, well, it would be better if we co-wrote it. So I asked her about it, and she said, sure, let's do it. So that's what we did. And it's really, the bulk of the material is Patrick's research. And then, I had to do a lot of formatting, especially to reverse the order of everything. And then we added a little bit of contextual summary kind of material. But I would say the vast majority of the book is really just these sightings that Patrick Cook had been collecting for who knows how long, for a long time. And yeah, like what an amazing collection it was. That there was, we added a few extra ones to it, and we ended up with 364. So I'm not aware of any other books that have that many sightings in them. But yeah.
No, it's a great reference for people to look at, especially if you're trying to find some, because they're all right there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of those, like, going through those, it's like putting the promo. Most people, when you think of, when did this start? Like I said, Brian even said it too. Most people go to Roswell. The Roswell crash. This is when we finally knew aliens were here. We've done these things, but when you actually go through this stuff, there is so much more than just the war period. I think that's what you guys call that, where it's like
Yeah.
right around World War II, where you have all these things. Because you go back the time, World War One. I mean, you keep going back through all these things. The founders, everybody, the early colonists saw things here on this continent. Then you go back to the old world, and you see more and more of these things. And all you have to do, especially when you're looking, when like your book UFOs in the Bible, you start seeing this artwork from the Renaissance painters, and you look at this thing, and you like see some guy floating in this star-shaped, object, and the whole time you're like, okay, that there wasn't coast to coast AM, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't sci-fi, so no painter was just sitting here thinking up, it's like, hey, I'm going to depict some dude flying around in this this sun-like starcraft up in the sky while Jesus is sitting up here. And you just start going through all this stuff, and you look at it and you're like, okay, it makes sense. I mean, it was like right there in front of your face. I mean, okay, there has to be something to this. There really does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Roswell also was almost a cutoff point, because after Roswell, fear was connected to the UFOs, and before Roswell, that's not really the case. They were, in many cases, just sort of. It was almost there are places where was it Aleister Crowley saw two small men when he was climbing a mountain, and he kind of waved at him, and they waved back and didn't talk to him. I mean, aliens and UFOs were not really something to be terrified of. And after Roswell, because among other things of the fact that the government was lying to us and hiding things, it became a fearful experience, which is kind of sad.
Yeah. It really is. I mean, I know there's both camps. I mean, we've had many people on here that, some that believe that all visitors are here for, they don't have ill intentions. But I'm like, I just look at nature. It's like most can coexist, but just nature in its thing, it's a predatory thing. There is something that, that looks through just natural thing. A lion eats a gazelle. The lion in itself isn't inherently evil. There's got to be, if there's all these races, there has to be one who either we're a food source, another race is a food source, or there's something nefarious behind it. But there's also going to be the other side where there's going to be a lot of them that are going to visit. They're here, one kind of like Star Trek thing. They're just here for, to come up to us and just like, hey, we just want to observe. And I'm like, and I think that's where you don't want to be afraid of it, but you also want, like I said, I don't know if a craft landed outside my house right now, I'm just going to go running up and start hugging him.
Yeah.
I'm going to be worried Independence Day might happen. It's going to be cautiously approach.
I'd advise you not to run up and hug them. Trust me.
What's that Far Side cartoon where the guy goes up, it's like the farm or something goes up and handshakes? It's the aliens where the heads are the hand.
Oh yeah.
He goes up and he shakes the leaders, grabs by the head and starts shaking him. It's like so it's like type of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good point, is that, with any kind of contact, like extraterrestrial contact specifically, we don't know what the cultural factors in play are. And I mean, if you compare it to even instances within human contact, where, for example, when the conquistadors came over across to the Incan civilization, there was a lot of misunderstanding. There was a lot of it ended up being a very, very violent process. It didn't necessarily start out violently, though. But things can easily take a turn for the worse, and if that's true with our own species, then how much more risk is there when we're talking about people from who knows where, and with who knows what intent and assumptions about us, and maybe some of those assumptions are very well founded, because they've they've probably seen us on the news.
A couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well,
would you
no, go
say,
ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Craig, but
No.
I think over the evolution process or history, we've gone from, when you're scared or unknown, you're going to be on the defensive. But I think we've matured, but we also regressed. So they're I don't know how well they really do know how to predict us. Because you think about it, in the 1500s, you're seeing this, oh, what's this, this starcraft or whatever. People are in awe of it. Is it a god? Is it an angel? Is it whatever? And then you go, and just before that, it was the caveman, time period where these things are, like throwing rocks at it. They don't know what you're doing. So it's really complex. And it seemed to, there's a lot of people that have fear over this subject. They're scared out of their mind. And in your research, do you find, what percentage did you find that may be scared because subconsciously they've been abducted and don't want to live that again?
The feeling that I got before Roswell, there was hardly any fear at all, from what I could figure. But afterwards, having movies like Alien and like Whitney Strieber's Contact, and I mean, it's almost like once you have seen The Exorcist, you see that in almost everybody you know, and I truly believe I know some people that if they're not possessed, then they have a mental disorder. So, it's kind of like you're looking for something. I saw a UFO in 1966. I have no fear. I wouldn't run up and hug them, but I certainly wouldn't run away either.
Right.
And there are people that have had experiences where they have had very, very frightening experiences. That's not the case with me. And I think what I found fascinating was when it happened, when I was in college, we were in the dorm when it landed on the campus, so we couldn't go out. And we heard the police coming and the sirens and everything. And when it did take off and swoop over the dorm, there were I don't know how many people were in the dorm, but a lot. And most of them were screaming and crying and running and hiding. And it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. I'm standing there saying, damn, look at that thing. And, to me, it was amazing. And I guess because I actually have always believed in them. So I finally saw one. But the person standing right next to me did not see it. And when I say it blanked out the sky, it was that close. It was a couple 100 feet up.
So the person next to you didn't see it, but you saw it and a few other people saw it.
And a few others. There weren't a lot of us that saw it. And my feeling, I explained my feeling by talking about Close Encounters of the Third Kind. At the very, very end, when they're sending our astronauts into the saucer while their people come out, and they push the guy that climbed the mountain up, and he gets to go too. And somebody said, but he hasn't had training, and the response was, but he was invited. And
Yep.
in a way, I felt invited, not to take a ride, but to be. I consciously, level of consciousness, whatever you want to call it, I was ready to accept the existence and not be afraid of it.
It's very interesting through my research, and it also pertains to this great book you put out, and what you just said. UFOs throughout history, and no one can kind of figure out how they're doing it, but there are ways to do it because we can do certain things on call it a psychic path, where you can tune into people individually.
Yeah.
And each person has their own frequency. So that's primarily how they're going to be doing it. But if you're seeing it or you're being allowed or invited to see this craft, they believe that you are frequency, you're vibrating at a higher frequency. And the person that's to the right of you that didn't see a damn thing never is going to believe it to begin with. They're letting you into that vision. And I will almost wager that over your course of your lifetime, you may have been part of a missing time episode a couple of times. Whether you're aware of it or not is a different. You're actually, sometimes it's better not to be aware of it.
Well, I would say that turned me on to a course of a pathway in my life.
Yeah.
That I would say that I channel material, spiritual material. It's beautiful stuff. And, you know, I always say it didn't come from me, it came through me. And I've done things that were not in my powerhouse, so to speak, that suddenly I was doing that I was very surprised at. I painted the deck of cards. I'm not an artist, but I've sold over 500 paintings that are around the world. So that makes me an artist. But
right. That isn't that great?
So, you know, it's like, not really, you know, you don't ask me to do a portrait, but it's
Got the hands.
AI
has trouble with the hands.
no. I painted mandalas. You know,
Yeah,
it was a spiritual
Takes
thing. It
too
was,
long to paint.
you know, paintings of people's soul energy and their you know, their spirit and stuff. But I would say that the fact that I so easily slide into that level of consciousness, if you want to call it that, does say something. I think a switch got thrown.
Well, yeah, I mean, they do. Again, this is from I've been researching this boots on the ground for 45 years, roughly. And this has taken a long time to get to this point, but the people that I've encountered that have had their lives turned semi upside down, some people enjoying it, some people are just freaked out about it. This has been in the works for lifetime, you know, for generation after generation. You two meeting is part of their plan too. All four of us here on this show, everybody watching and paying attention, there is a connection that runs very deep.
Oh,
and no one understands. You know, it's like, you know, and look, how many people raise your hand? All the ridicule, like, ooh, let's get out the tinfoil hats, right? You know, throughout your lifetime. But when you have an event, it does change your life, and whether you're aware of it or not, you started. You know, maybe that was the moment where they said, you need to start painting now. We're going to send you back down, but you need to start painting. You know, you have such beautiful prose. Well, we're going to introduce you to this gentleman who's going to tell you to write a book. Go write the book.
It's really, it's funny because I met Ken through Mark, and we started talking about publishing and stuff. And you know, after he asked me about the UFO stuff, and we got to talking, and I mentioned that I had the deck of cards that was no longer published, and I always thought I was going to write a handbook for it, and I never did. And he said, well, I'm a publisher, I'll do it. Yeah. And
isn't it interesting?
And up to that point, I didn't know how to get it published or republished. And, you know, in a way, it's been fabulous. And except I had to write the book, which, you know.
That's the tough part. It's like that's like the old joke, Steve Million. Oh, you want Steve Martin with oh, you want to be a millionaire? Okay, follow these steps. First, get $1 million.
Yeah.
Yep. It's the same old step.
I can't tell you how often I talked about wanting to write the handbook. And Ken just said, well, you know, write it. We'll republish the cards. And then he actually went ahead and got everything set up so the cards could be republished. And it was like, uh-oh.
Now you got a deadline.
Yeah,
I know. Oh, it's something. It's a deadline. I gave it to myself because you have the cards ready to go, and I don't have the book ready to go. So yeah. I mean,
Ken, on a publishing side, you know, the deadlines, and because you want to get certain, you're trying to, even as an independent, you must be trying to market the right way or hit certain milestones to make it a better or more flavor on the book when it's released.
Yeah, you know, absolutely. There's so many things that you got to be aware of and thinking of. I gave myself a deadline for my last book, Fermi's Paradox is bullshit. And I really regretted that decision of because I put it out as a pre-release, a pre-order, and then I was like, oh God, what have I done? Now I have to get it done. I'm never going to do that again.
Never.
But it was a good experience, but holy crap, it's such a different vibe when you're working to a schedule as to, well, I'm going to get this done. And I think that it's, in many ways, it's more healthy to just be able to follow the spirit, as it were,
right.
Or it's sometimes it's not the time to do this thing.
Well, I think, Ken, we couldn't have been more fortunate because the book came out on the 17th, just as we had the UFOs floating over the country. I mean, we could not have paid for that to happen.
Yeah, that's right.
That's good PR, right there. And that's another question I was going to ask. Sorry to interrupt, Craig.
No, you're good.
I apologize. But when you get to a certain point and you get it all together, because I did publishing at one point. I have stuff I'm writing right now, and I'm working with one person, and I'm being lazy about it.
Yeah.
We really need to get it done in the next month. I'm like, not going to happen. You get to a certain point, but at any point in time when you were putting this out, did you ever stop the presses and say 3 great events just happened? We really should include them. Or did you just say, forget it, we're just going to keep going forward?
Not in this book, because this book is about stuff that happened 50 years ago at the latest, right? But while I was writing the Fermi book, which is, I don't know if you can see it here. I'll try. It's hard to do this one.
There you go.
If I get out of the way. Anyway, Fermi's Paradox is bullshit. When I was writing that, it was pretty much all research, 100%, because I tend to write books that I think sound like something that I want to know about that I currently know nothing about. And so then I have to just do a lot of research, and I never really know where the book is taking me. And so for that particular book, it's really about asking the question, is there any evidence for extraterrestrial life? And I didn't even really know my opinion on that in terms of what my answer would be until I was well into the book, and just realizing and finding all this evidence. And much of it is, almost all of it is like science that has only been discovered in the last 10 years or so. And a lot of it was really cutting, like stuff that was literally, I'm reading about something in Vice magazine, or, just literally like it's in the news right now. This has just been discovered, and I was able to slide it right into that book. Right. So yeah, it is. It's amazing when that kind of stuff happens, but it happens kind of all the time.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, because I was wondering, and my last question, Craig, I promise.
No, you're good.
So now that we did this,
this is what the whole show is supposed to be about. It's the talk. It's not the Craig let Craig talk and then you guys occasionally chime in show. No, that's the Craig. This is the part I love. This is little side note real quick. I'm gonna to let you get back to there. That's actually why I wanted to start the podcast. It's because the whole thing is I wanted to have discussions for the shows that I couldn't find. Because that was the whole point. I wanted it to be different. I always wanted, when I started this, I told people I wanted it to be somewhere between Joe Rogan and Art Bell.
Yeah.
Because I like Joe Rogan's style of where it was serious, but it was also, there was humor thrown in there. And the Art Bell thing touched on the subjects that you never heard of Mel's Hole before. That wasn't something before. You listen to the show on Mel's Hole and you're like, oh my God, a hole bottomless pit, people threw trash in, nothing. And then he moves to the southwest, and all of a sudden this strange, ice comes out that, starts deteriorating the natives' cabins and stuff. It's like, okay, this is freaking awesome.
I've still never heard about this. I got to check this one out.
Mel's Hole? You've never heard of that?
Yeah, I never heard of that.
Sounds like a
Oh.
70s porn movie, but it's not.
No, you've got look into just look at you can find this
okay.
up. Yeah, we see we
What-
sidetracked here, but you talk
You guys did
Mel's
an
Hole.
episode on it. I'll check.
No,
out your,
I actually
yeah.
I want to, but this is one. This was a fantastic one. This was one of, I would say, Art Bell's finest, type ways of doing a show, because he did it to where he never himself he does the epitome of the thing. It's not my job to say whether the guest is crazy or sane or intelligent or whatever. That is you, the audience, to make that decision. My job is to put forth this story, let you tell your story, delve into the little things like, tell me more, go like this. But it never, at the point, am I endorsing it or telling you, God, you're an idiot. That's not my job. That's the guest's job to do that stuff. My job is just to put forth an amazing product for everybody to take in. And that's where I said, like, Art Bell, he did that masterfully, because he would have people that are on saying they were Jesus Christ, they were the devil. I mean, there's all these people that were calling in, just, I'm Trucker Bob, I'm going through Missouri right now, and I just saw a 12-foot Bigfoot. Oh my God, it tried to jump in the cab. And you're like, that's incredible. What did it look like? And it's just like this, but you never said, it's like, man, I totally believe you. I never said no.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, Brian,
Just
I
continue.
digress.
No.
Continue on.
Well, I'm just trying to see, Barbara, do you have plans for another book after Roswell?
Well, not really, because here's the reason. After Roswell, the waters become so muddied that you can try for 50 years to get to the bottom of even one case, and never really get anywhere.
Yeah.
There's so much disinformation, misinformation, suppression, just like active lying, active discrediting. People's lives are being threatened. People are being discredited and losing their careers. Like, are there spaceships? I don't know for sure. I think so. But I'm certainly not willing to do other people harm over the question. So there's what is going on with not only people, but institutions and layers of government that are actively engaging in this type of behavior that is literally psychotic behavior.
Right. I mean, we went from, if you think about it, we went from $1 million industries to $1 billion industries to now $1 trillion industries. There's money involved in this. And it's unfortunate, but there's groups that are out there. I'll just say this, there's mutual groups that are out there, and they're not doing good what they should. And what you just described is the reason why I've always been independent. I share my research. I won't share with most of the people over at some of these mutual organizations. I'm not mentioning them.
Whose names shall go unknown.
Yeah. I'm just going to say their first initial.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of friends.
Mutual.
I know a lot of bigwigs over there.
Is he talking about Mutual of Omaha?
Yes.
What's
Well,
he got against the Spank?
Jim, go take out the gazelle now. But the problem is when you start seeing racism, sexism, child stuff that you should not be seeing, and some other things, and then when people are selling, when these groups are selling information to the highest bidder and not releasing information, then what you have is bureaucracy, and it's no different than what our government's doing.
Yeah,
not one bit of research.
True.
And Barbara, when you saw this craft, from that point forward, everything in your life just must have been like, yeah, it's going to get weird now. And it was in the 60s, right? So
actually,
that was weird to begin with.
Actually, it was, it was sort of like, and nothing is the same ever again. And
yeah,
I got a lot of the criticism and stuff. I mean, how many beers did you have that night? And
the 60s, I was thinking more of something that begins with an L and an S and a D.
Yeah.
Versus,
it was fascinating in that I saw it, and we listened on the radio for the report at midnight, and it didn't come. and it wasn't in the newspapers, and it wasn't anywhere. And I've learned since that it did hit the newspapers someplace, but total blackout in our area for sure.
Oh yeah.
And so for years, I would say, yeah, I saw a UFO, and it was that, yeah, right, you know, and it was, gosh, in the when was it? It was probably in the 80s, in the 90s, maybe. I forget when the book came out, the 90s maybe. There was a book called In Focus, and the author did only the actual authenticated sightings. And the one on my campus was one of them. And I wanted to buy 100 books at that time, and
Told you
send them
so.
out to
Told you so.
everybody. And
Told you so. Told you so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really, unfortunately, I didn't have everybody's name and address, or I would have.
Right. Growing up that way, you don't have. We never had this social media thing where people actually connect with each other.
Yeah.
With dial-up queries, but that's about it.
But it was such a relief. And when Patrick was alive, probably it was about 11 probably. Eugene Botha from South Africa did a UFO on extraterrestrials and UFOs, and they came and filmed us at our house because of his website, UFOs in the Bible, and then because I had actually seen a UFO. So it was kind of fun.
Yep, it does change your life when you do have that experience. And
Yeah.
and you mentioned something that's very interesting. I've always said when I give presentations, and I've done a lot of events where I do a presentation with my own videos. I like to use my own UFO videos. I took them, no trickery in the camera. They're good. But and then we usually go into like an active encounter where we try to summon in a craft. I've been very successful with that. But I something in my presentation is right there. This whole disclosure movement, it drives me nuts, because disclosure happened already in 1977. You mentioned the movie; it was called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Dr. Hynek actually did the disclosure in the movie. This is the man that was in charge of everything. And these people, and I get it, because when you see something, you went through the ridicule. I've been ridiculed, I don't know, Ken, if you've been, if you've seen things and you're like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, Ken's here. Hide the salt. It may fly away again, and people want that I told you so moment, but I don't need anybody to tell me. I know what I saw. I know what I've experienced. Yeah. So,
I mean, so the interesting thing is, like, I mean, I sort of saw a UFO, but that happened after my sort of Ken's crazy thing, was because that was more of a religious experience for me. When I began to like, I was raised in a Christian home, and I've been very active in the church for almost 50 years. And then I began to notice that actually we're sort of maybe misinterpreting some stuff in here, and maybe some of these doctrines don't really make sense. And so just starting to kind of look at things a little bit differently, and having intelligent conversations with intelligent people who would just literally refuse to understand what I was saying. And so there's this layer of it's almost like when you're in the 12 stages of grief, there's that what's the second stage?
Oh, I never followed any stages. I just
anyways. Yeah, well, the 12 step program.
Unless there's like if something is like one of the steps we're close, there's denial.
Yeah, denial. So that's it, and that's seriously like so real and so powerful that you in many different types of situations, you literally cannot see the truth that's right in front of your eyes. And this is actually something that Jesus said too. He said, those who have ears to hear, let him hear. And they just can't. So it's interesting that that's been documented since 2,000 years ago by Jesus. But I think that's another phenomenon that is sort of overlaid on top of the UFO phenomenon. That there's all of these different strange and kind of weird and crazy almost ways that the human mind is able or is not able to perceive what is literally happening right in front of us.
Yeah.
So that goes back to what Barbara was saying, where her friend was standing right there and didn't see it. And I think that correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara, I'm not an expert on this particular example, but I believe in the Phoenix Lights, that same type of thing happened where literally thousands of people saw these lights in the sky, but then there were also people who were right there with them who basically saw nothing.
Yeah. It is almost as though there's a level of consciousness that a frequency, if you want to call it that it's like a channel. And how we deal in different channels in our, when we talk to friends, when we're on the radio, when different channels you utilize. And
Mm-hmm.
I think when I do my channeling work, that's another channel. And so I think that if you'd have different channels, then you work on turning them on and off at will. So
that's true.
Then you play with it.
That's a really good point. And I mean, I've done remote viewing once, one time. I didn't intend to do it. I've done healing a number of times, quite a number of times. For a period, I thought that was a thing that I was interested in doing. I don't really do it very much anymore, but I still would if the opportunity presented. But there's these different modes of living, I guess, or different modes of action that you can choose to embrace or ignore. And again, many people are afraid of these things because we don't understand it. There's nothing scary about healing. I mean, a guy came to me and he had twisted his ankle. I said, well, I can fix you up. And he could have been chosen to be afraid, but he didn't. And he said, well, what's it going to hurt? And he walked away without a limp. So it's like, these are the kinds of things where we have these choices that are presented to us as we go through our life. And there are choices that come to us in terms of opportunities, and many times they come with these what may appear to be a crisis of belief for some reason or another. And I think that that whole crisis of belief thing is probably the biggest stumbling block, or the biggest boundary or obstacle, I guess, in terms of us as a species, as the human race, in terms of moving forward and embracing these multi-layered truths that are all around us. And I'm including the UFO phenomenon, as well as a whole bunch of other different, paranormal, parapsychology, religious and spiritual, all of these different aspects of things that kind of fall outside of our ability to understand in a rational manner. And we need to be able to basically be okay with that level of understanding or non-understanding, and that life is messy, and it's not always going to fit inside our neat little box that we want to try and stick it in.
True.
Doesn't matter. That's one thing that's a constant. No matter how hard you try to have everything organized and stuff, it's like it always seems to divert. And that one way you did.
There's a saying that, and I forgot what it is. I think it's another language. It says, "Man plans and God laughs."
Yeah.
And that's the truth. May I ask one more? Craig, you're going to kill me.
Yes.
Barbara, so I'm a remote viewer, and when we do paranormal stuff, my psychic I kind of worked with her on it. I don't want to open a Pandora's box. I call it remote viewing. She calls it psychic. I was more comfortable with remote viewing, but as you start using any muscle, it starts to develop and more muscles come out of it. And I believe that when God made man in his image, this is part of what is, your ability you're supposed to be doing, but totally different subject. Do you think your channeling work that you do, did that start like when you were very young, or was it after your encounter or your experience with the craft? And do you think it has a bearing on your pathway?
I think it happened after. And I for a while studied in a spiritualist church for spirituality, not to be able to read people or anything like that. And at one point the minister said, the class was doing so well, we're going to do a big evening in the church and everybody's going to do a part of the service. And I figured I was going to go scot-free because I was one of the newer people in the class. And I'll take collection. So as I was leaving, he said, oh, by the way, Barbara, you're going to do the mediumship. And I looked at him and I said, I think I'm faking it. And he said, no, you're not faking it. You're a natural. And I said, no, I'm pretty sure I'm faking. And and so when, he said, well, listen, have friends there. You can read your friends. And so I paid 6 friends $20 a piece to be in the audience. So I figured 6 was enough. And afterwards I said, well, I'll go out. And so when we did the service, I was sitting there cocky as hell because I knew I had 6 people I was going to have go, oh, yes, oh my God. And I stood up there behind the podium and not a one of them was there. And they started ahead of me. I should have paid them after the service. And so I figured, well, I've made myself a fool in front of larger groups of people. I was a teacher, so, I called on people and I gave them, relatives or situations or whatever. And the minister finally said, thank you. And I sat down and I looked at him and I said, I hope you're satisfied. He said, you were dead on. And afterwards, they all came up and said, do you do private readings? And no, I don't think so. Took him 7 years to convince me that I am so fortunate in that it is a quality inside of me that comes at call anytime. And I do trace it back to that seeing the UFO and knowing that something had happened to me. And so, I've led meditations, I've done workshops, I've done conventions, I've done private readings up the wazoo, and it's always there. I click in and something comes. And
like yourself, I get stuff all the time. And I second guess it like, okay, is this my past use of certain hallucinogenics in the past coming back to haunt me? Or because I'm an artist as well and I use, both hemispheres. This has totally it's been since birth. I mean, I've been doing things similar to this and I've noted, like I used to like to play around with people on buses. So I go to the back of the bus and stare at them, turn around, and say to my mind, turn around. And you get the people just eventually, they'll turn around. That's part of it. But something that, do you think before Roswell and then after Roswell, when people say, well, what's so important about Roswell? And my opinion of it is, and maybe I could be wrong. I said, the opinion of Roswell is why Roswell's so important is because after Roswell, people started to open their minds and become on that path, or for those people that lived through the 60s, the age of Aquarius.
Yes.
And that's where we should be right now. And people are starting to wake up to it. So I think that's the importance of it.
That's one of them. I think the other is that being aware of the kind of things that happened before Roswell that have always been a part of our culture, have always been out there. 14,000 years ago, there are paintings in caves in France. I mean, you can go back to the Sumerians, and that's even longer. And so I think that it's, and to me, it's important because the kind of energy that's in all of the sightings is a casual energy. It was like, oh yeah, the farmer saw somebody knocked over his windmill, or I mean, it's like it was a part of the culture that was that everybody kind of took for granted. And even in the Aurora, Texas sighting in help me,
Great.
can 1889.
1890. I think it was 1897.
Okay,
But
but there
Just
was
the 80, I knew there was a 7 in there, and I wasn't sure if it was 80 or 90, but it was like the old West for the most part.
yeah,
well,
exactly.
yeah. And in this case, this UFO hit a windmill and crashed, and they got out and they tried to fix it and they couldn't. It took off again, and it crashed next to the woods. And originally they thought there were 6 people in it, but they only found one body. It was a very small man, and the townspeople were very respectful. They got a casket. They had a funeral for the pilot.
Yep.
And the person that gave the story to whoever wrote the story was a girl that had been 15 at the time, and her mother wouldn't let her go to the crash site, but did let her go to the funeral. And a number of years later, one of the agencies went to Aurora wanting to dig up the grave, and the townspeople wouldn't tell them where it was.
Yep. And they've also moved the body a long time ago.
Now I'm wondering if this is the same person.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because
So,
Michelle
but
did it. My great grandfather
It's not
witnessed
out
a
of
UFO. It is
Michelle says, so Roswell is in New Mexico.
Yeah, totally
but
different location.
this other one was in Aurora, Texas, but almost the exact same scenario.
Yeah.
Like it runs into
Yeah.
a windmill.
yeah, because
I mean,
her follow up to that was that the craft and creature were buried by the townsmen.
yeah.
There's plenty
So-
of stories about of even in the indigenous or natives, peoples. They've
Yeah, to me, it's that was the crazy part though, was there's hardly any stories that you hear tales of where, like Barb was bringing up, where the town actually comes together, collects the craft or collects the bodies, buries it, and then refuses to talk about it. When Men in Black and all this stuff come, it's like, where's it at? I don't know. Tom buried it.
That's an old.
Go to Tom. Who? I don't know. Bob was in charge of that. Nobody tells us, like, no. That's I
Well,
said it's an iron
that
mark,
is-
and you're never finding it.
That is sort of part of the native
Culture.
tradition, because the in every indigenous culture that you can that you can find, there's always these stories that are eerily similar to at least certain aspects of UFO, whether it's the Thunderbird, whether it's the ant people, and there's a whole bunch of different ones all around the world, and they don't always have all the same aspects, but it becomes kind of evident after reading a lot about them, and there's tons of people writing books about this stuff nowadays, and really you start to get the idea that, okay, well, we're all talking about the same thing here, but then you can go down to talk to the elders, and they're gonna they might tell you a few things, but they're not going to tell you everything that they know about it, because a lot of that information is still a guarded secret, because it's part of the cultural heritage. And I mean, there's been so much cultural appropriation, for one, and just destruction. And I mean, we're really good at stealing stuff from everyone and totally ruining it for them. And when you have especially this ancestral part of it, because these are stories that they've been hearing from their grandparents, from their great grandparents, and so it is this family history. Not only that, but I'm absolutely 100% sure that in many cases there are artifacts involved, and those, nobody's just going to come right out and say, oh yeah, hey, cool, look at this cool thing that my great grandfather found 300 years ago.
Right.
Do you guys want to steal it and take it and put it in a hotel or in a museum in New York? No,
Well-
why is anybody going to do that?
Look what happened at Roswell. There were
Mhm.
bodies, and what happened? They got taken, they got dissected, I mean, there was no respect for those bodies.
No.
Nothing.
Different
Mhm.
different people though. You're talking about townspeople versus a military organization.
Yeah.
So
Right. But again, I guess my point was that the townspeople, if you look at it from the right angle, the native populations are the townspeople, and they are protecting that information,
Mhm.
and they are safeguarding and trying to respect maybe even the soul of the alien who crashed. Like,
Yeah.
we don't know what all is involved, right?
Right. No, it's your atypical. I mean, we've all heard stories, we've seen stories, we've seen movies about the West. It's some of them are very, very accurate, and townspeople know that outsiders are not to be trusted, or you need to leave, mister.
Yeah, that's right.
We don't know who you are, and it takes a while, even if you're new moving into a town. It takes a while for the town to say, check you out. Everybody's going to check you out and make sure you're not, something bad. Because they've been, and the reason is, they've been so screwed over so many times previously. This is where that comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So here's something that had there's a problem. You can clearly see it's an accident, and I'm going to use the Christian thing to do, or the religious thing to do. It's not necessarily Christian, but there's a religious aspect. We need to help.
Right.
Yeah.
And they go help. Whereas they come in, it's always that one guy comes in, he buys the old ranch, and now he's, slave laboring it to everybody and trying to take over the town. I mean, it's your atypical story. Like, where's that green alien guy? Give it to us,
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, the typical movie storyline. No, I was look at the timer real quick. One of the questions I really wanted to get to. We'll do this here. Throughout the research, and just for anybody that's new to the UFO scene, that's been studying for a long time, what seems to be through all the evidence that you guys had compiled and stuff, did you guys notice any similarities, any themes that were popping up, like what a commonality was of the reason they're here? So that's always a thing. It's just like, what's the purpose? I mean, are they just flying in the atmosphere to just kind of
Mm-hmm.
what's up, and just drive by? It's like, oh man, we're in the hood. Keep on going through the solar system. Get out of here. Roll up the windows. It's just,
Roll 'em up,
yeah, because I've wondered. It's because there's always a theme. It's like, are they here to help us? Are they here to steer us? Well, if they're here to help us, they're sure doing a really
bad job.
They're almost doing the Christianity thing. Like, I'm here to help guide you. So are you gonna help? No, that you're on your own to decide how that's supposed to happen. But just believe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how do we know? Maybe the extraterrestrials are part of a culture or even a religion that is as messed up as ours are.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's probably worse because they're an older civilization. We've forgot stuff a million years ago, and only in the last 10,000 years have started to learn some of that stuff back. Maybe these guys have forgotten about it a billion years ago, and who knows how many times it's been lost. How many of their national libraries have been destroyed and burned? Like, I mean, the human condition is probably not unique to us as a human species of Homo sapiens. And so, I mean, look at Star Trek and Star Wars, where you have all of these different races, different alien species and whatnot, but they all kind of act the same, and we all have the same motivations, a lot of the same thought processes. And it's actually pretty rare to have even a science fiction character that is essentially alien in their thinking. We might all look a lot different, but we're all sort of thinking the same things.
I just pictured gray aliens coming in with their elder badges and running with white T-shirts and things.
Yeah.
Well, look at the fact that Rendlesham Forest, the binary code that Jim got down that was translated, apparently was from the future 8,100 years. So we're being obviously observed through time, or maybe they were here first. They went out for lunch. We came and took the planet over, and now we're there just waiting for us to leave so they can have their planet back.
Yeah, we're eating their sandwich. They're like,
we're the
"Are you
ants.
serious?"
We just invaded the picnic.
That's where we get into, like, areas where you're trying to explain to individuals that there are extraterrestrials, beings not from this galaxy, from other galaxies. There are ultra terrestrials that are higher end beings that they come from wherever they need to come from. It could be a multitude of people. They're interdimensionals. They're parallel dimensionals. There's so many different variants. There's future individuals and past. And if you understand quantum physics, everything happens at once anyhow. So all this is happening right now at the same time.
Well, and now when you see a UFO, you don't know if it's ours or Japan's or Russia's or.
Well, I would wager money that I was talking to a couple people about this, and I still state as it is. The United States has pretty much captured every UFO only up until the last 30, 40 years. When they started to have a little bit of an issue getting to the craft because of other nations. But our technology is at least 150 years ahead of anybody else's. And we're still not even anywhere near where the technology of the lowest technological extraterrestrial or craft is. And you were saying something very true, that when you have a true, I would say, an alien experience, a beings that are not from this earth, it is a lot more peaceful than you would think. And 9 out of 10 times, you're not going to be made aware of you're having that, or made to remember, because you may not be able to psychologically handle it at this point. When you have those aggressive ones where it was all scary, my research, I'm inclined to believe it is the invitation by our U.S. government or another government agency to replicate this UFO experience. And what they're doing to do that has multiple variables. They need it for money to fund projects, but what are they doing with those samples they're taking? Because they're clearly taking samples.
Oh,
So you're talking like MK Ultra type thing?
No, I'm talking about like sperm samples, blood samples. They're doing things that are very, but what are they doing with it? And what are they building?
Let me throw into that pot. When Ancestry.com and 23andMe started taking DNA,
yes,
it was like, holy mackerel, they're creating a DNA sample. They're looking for somebody, something, some way. And then when the pandemic hit, again, they're swabbing for DNA.
Yep.
So what are they looking for? Who are they looking for?
Well, that's here. Everybody, I'm one of the few, and a couple of people have agreed with me. Everybody's like, oh, it's the RH negative. It's the RH negative. No, it's not RH negative. It's not even RH. It's your blood.
Taking my thunder.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm a negative blood type, and you keep degrading me.
Well, we're all.
It's the thing I had. You guys have seen UFOs, experienced UFOs. I had the RH negative thing, and you're stealing it from me.
Are you a rare blood type too?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm 4% Neanderthal DNA. So.
There you go.
See, I've just here. There's a reason I'm in the bottom corner here.
But the thing is, maybe what they're doing is they want to know where the rarer the blood type, the more unique the individual, the more importance that individual actually has down the chain. And I don't mean to discredit anybody who isn't of that.
Well, I'll say
we're better than you.
Well, let me skew this even a little bit weirder.
Sure.
Because actually, we're really avatars for a spirit that rides within us.
Yes.
So it's almost like, what factory did you come out of?
I've got a Shelby in me. What do you have, Craig? I got
a serial number.
Pinto. It's getting ready to blow up at any moment
with a loose gas cap. Yeah. So
no,
a lot to think about.
No, it's because that's one of the biggest things for me. It's like a lot of these UFOs, and that's because I'm all big about Barbara you guys talked about it earlier too. It's about the W questions: who, what, when, where, why. I think that's so incredible for people to focus on those ones, because that's science. I mean, that's how you do these things. I mean, facts don't care about your emotions. Your experience was your experience. It's just, you go through this. We can't tell you, you can't quantify feelings. You can't, it's like, this is the emotions that you can't quantify these things. What I can quantify is there's a footprint in the ground here. There's a burned circle right here where there used to be a lush meadow after Barbara saw the light. Now there's this burned out circle where nothing's going to grow. These are facts. And I think there's so many people that don't focus on this part. They just focus on this is what I felt. This is, you talk the woo, the type that they just go off in this land. And for me, I'm so, I always talk about, I'm a mixture of Scully and Mulder. Where it's like, I want to run off and check every little thing. This is the next conspiracy, the little gray man. But then I also have the same thing. It's like, I have to ask myself, why? It's like the UFOs. Why are they here? There has to be a reason. Like I said, it's not just passing through and like, sup, it's just like, they zoom off, because if we keep seeing them in front of your house, there's got to be a reason. You have to have some sort of importance. There has to be something to this.
I think that there are numerous answers to that question, and it isn't one simple one. There is not one simple answer, because there is certainly the factor of that they're here to watch or to observe, and that has been documented since at least 2000 BC, where we have stories of the Watchers and their involvement and coming down, and you get also the DNA thing happening there with the Nephilim, and it's also in the Sumerian stories where the Sumerian gods come and they spit into a lump of clay. So you've got DNA. So there's this whole aspect of DNA, as well as the aspect of sort of just kind of watching what's happening. But I mean, you mentioned earlier just kind of people zooming through, and I really, really very strongly believe that in some of these cases, these are just tourists that have had a little too much Argonian whatever, some kind of weird. They're
want to go check out the hood?
They're just crashing into mountains.
Everybody left.
Yeah.
How else are you going to come all the way across the galaxy or across a dimension or however it is? You're able to manipulate portal technology, however you got here, and then
He froze.
Something strange.
It's the aliens.
You're too close to the truth. That's usually what happens when you start.
When you get too close, everything.
Yeah, everything is like, wait, whoa, he's on.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were saying. Sorry, go back to his kind of froze a little bit.
I'm not sure where I froze, but basically, I mean, if you're able to make it across whatever time and space you had to traverse to get to Earth, then why are you suddenly such a bad driver that you're smashing into the side of a hill? So to me, it indicates that there are tourists involved here as well.
I totally agree with that. And
that's a good. Yeah,
I have an explanation for the Foo Fighters.
Okay.
Do any of you have cats?
Yes.
Have you ever used
but I have.
Have you ever used a laser with them?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't have cats, but I use it. That's fun.
And so, even without a cat, so my theory is that hiding behind the clouds someplace are aliens with little laser beams, seeing how close they can come to the planes with their laser things, and zoom them around and screwing with their minds and stuff like that. The blobs of light for the Foo Fighters look like either etheric bubbles of some sort or plasma bubbles, and I think it's the aliens having fun with a laser of some sort.
Yeah, that's entirely possible.
That's good.
That's pretty good theory. The cat
Yeah,
theory.
No, I mean, I was just thinking, it's like, yeah, I mean, you could basically just have some juvenile alien over there, just like, wow, watch these, watch me make him zip around.
Like what?
Yeah, maybe who are
the
here are the ones who were sternly warned by their parents, don't go to Earth this evening, and yet then now they're sneaking out and taking taking the escape pods and, hey guys, I broke into Dad's liquor cabinet. Let's go to Earth. Like,
Yeah, I
we
mean,
don't know.
like,
And-
like
Yeah, that's a good point.
you know, the relative that has to babysit the kids for a while. I told you not to touch the car. Your mother's gonna kill me.
Yeah.
Well, why not? I mean, couldn't they, they probably come from the same source, ultimately, source of all creation, created all of it. And maybe, they in some way, see, I think they have to have a sense of humor too. They've been around too long to not.
Yeah.
I think the Greys, the little Greys, have more of a sense of humor than all of them, but that's because, again, a lot of them are biological entities. They're basically clones. Those are the ones that are actually in control of the ships. Those are the reason that they're the reason why these things crash. They're not very intelligent. They can do things very easily. They're like worker bees, and they're just not the most intelligent. You don't put the person has an 80 IQ, in charge of like, a $300 million aircraft. It's just not going to work out for you.
Except they are.
Oh my God, did I hit that? Zach, I told you, pull it up.
Was that Monsters and Aliens where the, Bob keeps hitting the what he thinks is the lunch button and it's launch. Keeps hitting the lunch button.
Exactly the point.
Yeah.
So,
no, I was thinking too. It's just, I'm not endorsing this. Three Beers Podcast does not endorse this. But if your neighbor's ever really driving you crazy, they've got cats, you could always sit on your porch with a laser pointer through their house and just wreak havoc on their house as the cat's just going nuts.
Nice.
Anyway, I don't endorse that one. If you do it, that's your own. You're on your own.
You didn't hear about it here.
Yeah. You can. I like that. I like that theory on the Foo Fighters. I really do.
I like it
because it's one of those things that you could definitely, it would definitely make sense why it was basically like people would describe lights as opposed to physical, like a craft.
Yeah, and all of them, and in a lot of them, they didn't even register on radar, which means they were light, of some sort that was being broadcast or focused.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's like I always said crop circles were like extraterrestrial graffiti. That's it.
Yeah,
master lines.
Amazing. I was
they're amazing, but
I know I was in one once, and it was just the most incredible feeling ever.
Yes, it is.
It's the ozone, the quiet, the peacefulness, the whole thing. Very unusual. Same feeling I got in the chambers that Patrick and I visited all throughout the Northeast.
Oh, you've been there, huh?
We did we did a check out my website for Secrets of the Stones. We did a documentary on them.
I haven't seen it. I've actually been doing experiments. I'm formerly from New York, and I go to them all the time, and some really interesting things that I discovered there. I actually did check out your website, and I love some of the people that you recommend. I highly recommend.
Yeah, Secrets of the Stones. The video is right there.
Yeah, I'll go. I'm gonna go check that out.
Right there.
There it is.
Yep. And
just like that, you go clicky.
Did you go to Nida Mountain for that part of them? Yeah,
we there used to be about 200 chambers in the area. It's down to about 80.
Yeah, and a lot of them were they're all pretty much in very close proximity of each other, and some of them are now shopping centers.
Oh yeah, and parking lots.
And believe it or not, there's still events taking place around those shopping centers and parking lots. There's a residual effect. Sorry, Craig.
I think
I was just gonna.
What really impressed me with them is that there's no bugs in them.
Yeah.
They're pretty clean, and no mortar was used. They're all corbelled construction. It was quite an adventure to do that, and an honor to do the video.
Yeah, it's very interesting what takes place. We went up there a couple of, when the sea started happening, and I've posted on my Facebook page, and I was looking for it here. But my youngest, my wife, and my oldest were walking up, to the fire tower, and it was kind of like the sun was kind of setting. It was a little late in the day, and I took a picture of my youngest, who is just, I'm like, hey, give me a pose, and she gives me a pose. She had a fairy land on her finger.
Oh,
I took a series of photos there, and I didn't say this the last time, so I got a lot of grief from people. But this is a series of photos, and my father was a professional photographer. This was not lens flare or whatever. And if you've been in the area and you've done experimentation in there, and asked for active encounters, it's something. She was very connected to something there. Even on the way down, we were getting things that were wisping by, and was keeping an eye on them purposely for that. So,
and that's just like you were saying. There's just with the photographs, that's kind of goes back to where, like, the scientific side. If you take a series of photographs, if there's this photo shows nothing, the next photo shows nothing, but this photo in between, something appears. Okay, well, obviously, you can start to rule out stuff like lens flare and everything because you're facing the same direction. If it was sunlight, you would have that same appearance showing up in multiple photographs.
Yep.
Same way with like UFOs. If all of a sudden you're taking a photo of the sky, there's nothing. And then all of a sudden you have this little like streak or something that shows up in one. And then the very next photo, there's nothing. Okay, we need to look at that middle photograph and see what this is. Isolate this. Maybe it was a bird. Maybe something flew by. You have those things, but most people, they'll take a series and they'll find one little thing and they'll throw that out there as concrete proof of the existence of a UFO. And you're like, the problem is then it takes something like an experience that Ken, Brian, Barbara has, and you basically, now you get lumped in with me just showing a random photograph that I swear is the most accurate UFO that's ever been shown to humanity.
Right.
And all four of us now become my story. Everybody looks at the same thing. There's no differentiating because everybody doesn't take the time to do those little things. And it's like, that's not trolling people. I wish more people would do the stuff like you guys have done with the book, where you do the research, you do these things, you set through there, so you don't have the agenda. It's here's the evidence. This is what we found. This is what we seem to be coming through. And it's really, really cool. Here, let me add that to the stream.
Yeah, sorry about that, but that is what we caught.
oh, wow.
There's the picture.
Wow.
And if you've been up to Nindermount, which you have, that's after you park there and you get out, you start making the trek up that little, 30 grade and right on her finger. And if you look, I wish this was the better shot because I can't find them right now, but I shoot in RAW, so you can really zoom in on that. You can see like eyes and a brow, and that's not lens flare.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, I just figured I'd share it so everybody can actually see it. We were talking about fairies on another show one of my friends shows, and I was like, yeah. So,
and that's the kind of stuff that's pretty cool. Is that that's what I like. Those are the things I like. That's right. The art bell. So tell me more about this. Where were you at? What kind of
those fairies? Were you eating carnation instant breakfast?
But that's a good point. Is like that. Where were you? When was it? What day was it? Those kinds of facts, even though they don't like why really, but those are the kind of facts that really give credibility, because this is a real thing that really happened. This was the time. This was the place. Like was my experience, and we try to include as much as that as possible in our book. It's kind of funny because back in the day, a lot of the even the ones that were taken from newspapers, it seems like back to Barbara's point about it being so casual, a guy would be in town and say, oh yeah, I saw this thing out at the farm yesterday. And the newspaper reporter goes, oh, yeah, okay. And he just writes down what he says. He doesn't the reporters weren't even asking any follow-up questions. Like it's so weird
It is.
to think like this. A guy describes like a gray circle, and that's all you get. And there's no like, oh well, how big was it, or how fast was it moving, or any of this. In a lot of cases, we only have one or two specific aspects of the thing, where clearly, a thing that happens has you can describe it in many different ways. So, and then, like you said, Craig, when to actually sit down and think about your experience, and I strongly recommend that everyone who has had any kind of strange experience write it down, and then circle back with it and ask those 5 W's, and try to fill in more blanks, and try to get your story down in like get at least a page worth of what happened to you. And I would strongly suspect that probably half of us, if you throw together all the different kinds of strangeness, half of the population has seen something weird, and maybe the other half has simply forgotten it, or maybe it's been deprogrammed or something like that. But it's not as rare as you think. When I started doing this my show and my podcast, and started asking people about stuff, I was amazed at like how many people, maybe they're not necessarily ready to talk about it on a whole show or write a book about it or whatever. But so many people that I talked to were, oh yeah, no, I saw a UFO and a Bigfoot, not at the same time, but or it's either that or something totally different, like a ghost experience, or some strange kind of paranormal spiritual kind of thing, or they had a miracle, or they whatever it is. And there's all of these really weird things happening all around us all the time that just doesn't get talked about.
I mean, I feel it's intentional in a way too, the way they do some of the reporting, because I could sit. I'm just going to make something up, but I guarantee everybody that's listening and right now, you can picture the scene exactly. The news reporter comes up, you got the guy, he's got the trucker hat, looks like Joe Dirt, and you got the lady sitting next to him. She's wearing a belly shirt that's 2 sizes too small, and they're talking about the craft that they just saw. You can see the Pall Mall, cigarettes. You can see them sitting there describing the scene. And the reporter's talking to him condescendingly. There's this condescendence in their voice. They're like, "Oh, so you saw a craft, did you?" "Yeah, I did. It was just went up right there. It flew across a thing." And I said, "Oh my God, look at it." And, and then they put that on the news part, and then that's all they do. They don't, it's not, they were given this assignment. They don't care. And you can just see, that it's basically, and you could almost make the case that it's, that's encouraged because the stories that, you three have had experienced are going to be watered down, because everybody's going to be able to picture what I just described. I mean, everybody can see it in their mind. I mean, it's real easy to picture this, the beaten down truck.
Entertaining soundbite, right? So, I mean, that's great entertainment. And, maybe that was all anybody was looking for, until Alan Hynek started kind of digging a little deeper. Right.
Yep, even Sharon, I've smoked a Pall Mall. See, I'm telling you. Not I was kidding. Allah, Jesus, it's a fire. Those are the kind of sound bites that you get, and and all of a sudden you're a meme. And that's one of those things. But yeah, I just looked up the time. Holy crap, it's an hour and a half. Yeah. Before. Have you guys done a lot of research into like abduction cases at all while you're doing these things? Because one of our person had a question about if you've run across very many in West Virginia, like abduction. I'm sure there has to have been.
I'm sure there is. I've only spoken to 2 abductees, but I've only really been doing this research for about a year or 2. And in that time, I did manage to speak to 2 people. One is up in Canada where I am, and the other, well, I don't even know if his was necessarily an abduction, but more of these, the aliens show up in my bedroom kind of a scenario. And they did seem to be doing some experimentation on him, but I'm not sure if he was like physically taken or what.
Right.
No, I've not spoken to anyone.
Okay. So Chris, we'll see if we can figure something out for you. Yeah. So I just wanted to say, I didn't forget your question. I saw that we got deep into their conversation. So that was one I was not gonna derail it for that one.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely. So once again, let me show these things here because I want to make sure you guys get the
promote them.
That's right.
We're losing time.
Yeah, Dimension Fold Publishing here. Go to
Yes.
King Goudsward. Check him out there, and that is at dimensionfold.com. You can check out the channel that he's been talking to. Or here's also a nice link to Before Roswell, which would take you to exactly that location I just showed you. And so you can get there. It's definitely one of those by supporting them too. You also support the indie publishing thing, which is which is really big to help those guys keep going, because that's one a lot of people don't realize just how hard it is as an independent publisher.
Yeah, it's a struggle to survive. Thank God I have a day job.
Yeah. That's one of the, trust me. Yeah, let's see. I want to make sure I get here to the main page here too for yours. So this is BarbaraDeLong.com. So this is what we've been talking to. Here's Nightlight Radio, where she keeps Mark in check on a weekly basis.
Tries to.
And then this one right here, you can scroll down to the UFOs tab. This is that research and that compilation of just of all the stuff that they used for the book as well. And you can click there and then start right here. Like I said, it really goes down.
Great. It's a great website. I got to be honest. Yeah. Very simple. It's visually
45,000 BC to
it's organized perfectly
to Prince time, 1999.
And that's really hard to do, when you have so much and things overlap. So, but you did a great job.
Well, thank you.
It's a lot, and make sure you go back to Barbara's website in about a month or 2, because she's going to have new hot developments coming down the pipe.
Ooh.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Definitely.
So in a month or 2, you'll be back then.
Don't threaten us with a good time.
Exactly.
As I said, it's one of those. It's always been good. Like I said, I was glad to have you guys back on too, because it's been one to catch up. Like I said, it's a great conversation, but definitely everybody, you gotta get Before Roswell, The Secret History of UFOs. It's really, really good, excellently done. It's one of those things. It's a nice book to have on hand for just, especially if you're really passionate about the UFO topic, because you have all that information right there. It's easy. Like I said, it goes chronologically from Roswell back, and so you can start going through there, and you can start seeing these where they've taken major incidents that are right there in history. They're not, like I said, they're not. You think they're hidden, they're not. They're right there in your face.
Well, and one of the most important parts, actually, it's my favorite piece of trivia in the whole book. Are you aware of the first human being that shot down a UFO?
I know this. I don't want to spoil it.
Okay.
Because I listened to the show.
Oh, okay. I know Ken knows. The first human being to shoot down a UFO was the Red Baron, the real Red Baron.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
No, I was shocked when I listened to it. I go, oh, that's awesome trivia. I mean, and I liked how you were talking about, it's like that might be the one question I could get right on the Jeopardy.
Yeah. The
What's very interesting about that, sidebar before we go, had it been modern technology, it wouldn't have worked, because they have control over the electronics involved in the computers. That's why it worked.
Ah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Same reason why the Patty footage is perfect, because there was no electronics involved in the making of that footage.
Huh.
Very
And
cool.
that's where it's actually a good thing. Have both of you seen Nope?
Oh, here we
Not
go.
yet.
again.
I have not yet. I'm going to.
I keep wanting to tell the story. None of my guests have seen it. No, it's that same thing. They use old technology, and that's how they're able to film,
Oh, okay.
because it's it's that same thing. And so it's kind of there's predictive programming through like movies. I'm wondering if that's not something that they're kind of hinting at, that
Yeah.
to move forward, you got to go back. And
Right.
that's, the old tech, that reel to reel that you might have sitting there collecting dust in the garage and stuff might be the thing to dust off and start learning how to use, to film, because that might actually be one of the things that would allow people to start capturing things.
Yep.
Yeah. Right on. That's cool. Well, I'm
And
gonna have
so-
to watch that movie this weekend. But
Yeah,
Hey, can
No,
you
go ahead.
actually give us a link to Brian's stuff as well? Do you have your own podcast, Brian, or what do you got?
Yeah, I have a podcast. I have a link tree someplace, and I'll send it to Craig, and then I'll send it to you. And if you want to connect on Facebook, definitely do.
Yeah, cool.
I'm into sharing, so love your stuff, and I always promote good people. And eventually, I'll be doing my own podcast again, doing something new. But I haven't, gotten to the resolve of that yet. But I'd love to have you guys on to discuss more aliens, UFOs, and all the lovely things you do.
Always lots of fun.
Yeah.
Like coffee talk. I gave you a topic, discuss.
Yes.
Roman Empire was neither Roman nor an empire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you believe in UFOs? Are they kind
How
of
about
smooth
this?
like butter? Like smooth like butter? I don't know.
Fermi's paradox was neither Fermi's nor a paradox.
It's like discuss
That's
amongst
awesome.
yourselves.
My only thing is, like, coming in the next coming months, we're gonna have a problem with the beards too, because it's playoff season for the hockey teams, and
Yeah.
my hockey beard's gonna be growing in, and yeah, I'm gonna look.
Yep.
kinda like
If we see him
Bigfoot.
come on the show with a rally cap, we
Yeah.
know that the Rangers aren't doing good.
Right.
Tough to be.
Okay, well, that was really fun, guys. Thanks for
Yeah,
having us
we
on.
appreciate you guys. I really appreciate it. So definitely check out Ken and his show there. And I'm trying. Is it Dimension? It's Dimension Fold on YouTube, right?
Yeah,
correct.
Dimension
Okay.
Fold, right.
Yeah, I want to make sure I wasn't. And then same thing. You can put Nightlight Radio blogs. I think it's Blogspot or Blog Talk.
Book talk.
Blog Talk. Yes, check it. There, Barbara. Especially on Tuesday nights, you can listen to you can listen to her every now and then. It always kind of cracks me up when Mark starts saying, then all of a sudden you have Barbara chime in. It's like that's the producer Mike sitting like, yeah, that like yeah.
I think once or twice I have come in with, just remember who signs your paycheck, Mark.
That's right. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So definitely everybody check them out. Like I said, I just appreciate you coming on, you guys.
Thank
So
you.
T-shirts available on
thank you.
Redbubble. So follow the link.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely go watch Nope. I go. It's definitely for anybody that's cerebral with movies. You're gonna like it, because it's one of those. If you're just looking for like a normal like alien type movie, it's not those things, because they do so many nods to different tropes. The way that they do it, it's one of those. You really have to be, somebody that kind of has that cerebral thing when you're watching it, because you're gonna see, because you'll be like, oh my god, they just nodded. It's like, it's pretty cool the way they did, the way they did some stuff. So, I was a fan. If you can't tell.
Yeah.
Right on.
So go check them out.
Yep.
And this, once again, we are brought to you by ERRT Radio, courtesy of Ron. Go to Mixler.com, set up that account there, and everybody. Thank you so much for watching.
Can we give Barbara and Ken applause tonight?
Yes.
I gotta use the sound effects. Either that or using something from Galaxy Quest.
I know we got to get some of those ones where we can do it throughout the show. Figure out our rotation that we want to do.
And then I'll just go through them. But I love the Galaxy Quest ones.
Yeah, I know that movie. I wish he had not died. I would have loved to have seen a sequel.
It would have been great. But someone else can probably play that role. They'll just dress them, or they'll use, which I hate to do
the
it.
CGI. They'll just face map, use the voice.
Yeah.
It'll be a deep fake. Yep. But just everybody, thanks for all the support. Stars, M.A. Allen, thank you for the stars there. Happy birthday to a few of our former guests, Victoria, happy birthday to her, Debbie, happy birthday. It's like, so we've had a few fans of the birthdays, but everybody, I said, just go check out, like, subscribe, share. It's free. It takes 10 seconds. Ken, Barbara has her thing, Barbara DeLong on YouTube. All you have to do, literally like, subscribe, notification bell, 10 seconds. You can do this actually while you're listening. It doesn't disturb the show at all. So while you're listening to us, literally you can go click, click, click. I go in a lot of times, even if you stop at that point, it still helps us.
It makes a perfect birthday or anniversary present.
Yeah. You want to show your love to all of us on screen, like, share, subscribe. That's all you got to do. I said that once you get to 1,000, supposedly rainbows, unicorns, everything, the sky opens up and it's a party, and the whole world.
I would say not.
Yes.
We've got 2,200 and I never saw a unicorn.
No unicorns yet.
No unicorns.
I know. I keep asking Mark, when are you guys going to have your unicorn show? You say it in your opening.
Oh.
It's just like, you guys have yet to have that from UFOs to unicorns. I haven't heard the unicorn show. Because Kim Jong Il, he says that he found the unicorn cave.
Oh.
He did. Thank God.
Yeah. The father. Remember, he'd said that he had discovered unicorns. And so that, but he also hit 18 holes in one. On his first ever time playing. Yeah, his first time ever playing golf.
Yeah.
Thank you, superior leader.
Yes. So believe what you meant. Yeah. Hey, if somebody can hit 18 holes in a row, I bet you he could find the unicorn cave.
Yep. Well.
So So check out those guys. Everybody, thank you again for watching. I appreciate it. What outro we have to use the cows getting abducted. It would be silly not to use that one for that one. So everybody, thanks for watching. Go support everybody on their programs. Do the same thing. Like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next week. Good night.
Good night.